In this video, we'll be replacing the front pads and rotors on a Volkswagen Golf. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the wheel and then remove the spring from the caliper. There are caps on the guide pins. You're going to need to remove those. And then you can use a 7mm hex socket to get those off. There are 2 bolts. Then you can remove the guide pins. You want to unplug the brake sensor. You see he's just using a little screwdriver there to push the tab. And then it just disconnects.
Okay, you don't ever want to hang a caliper by its hose. You want to support it with something.
You're going to remove the bolts for the caliper bracket. There are 2 22mm bolts. And then there's a little T30 Torx bolt that's holding the rotor on. And you may need an impact to get that off. And then he's just using a mallet to knock the rotor off of the vehicle. You're going to want to use some kind of either a buffing pad or a sandpaper to clean the rust off of that. And then he's also cleaning it off the bracket. And then he's just going to spray it with an anti-corrosive. He's going to install the new rotor and put that little T30 Torx bolt back in and just tighten that down to like 5 foot-pounds. Just to hold it in place. I'm going to reinstall the caliper bracket bolts, 2 22mm bolts. He's putting a little medium thread locker on it, and then he's going to tighten those down to 140 foot-pounds each. Now he's going to push that piston back into the brake caliper. You can just use an old brake pad and a C-clamp and just tighten that down and it'll push that piston right back in. Use an old pad, that way it doesn't damage the new pad when you're using that C-clamp on it. It's going to add some anti-squeal around that piston and a little bit on the brake caliper as well to help with squealing. And then also lubing in those slides. I'm going to install the new brake pads. And then put the caliper back in. Reinstall the guide pins. Remember, they're 2 7mm hex bolts, and you're going to tighten those to 22 foot-pounds each. And then you want to remember to put those covers back on the guide pin. And then plug the brake sensor back in. Reinstall that spring clip to hold the brake pad there. Then you're going to install the tire and tighten those lug nuts down to 90 foot-pounds each, and you're going to use the star pattern shown. And you're all set.